Something along the lines of that would absolutely be legendary for 2023. But the most legendary thing in 2023, the fight that everybody needs to see, is what the fuck is going on YouTube. Welcome back to the Kevin Hoop Show. If you guys are new here, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get right into this shit. We are talking Alex Pereira, Khamzat Chimaev once again. These two have been in the talk of the town recently. It's the end of December. We've got 2023 coming up just around the fucking corner. And we still have not confirmed the next Khamzat Chimaev fight. I was talking about it a little bit in the beginning of this week. But I am now the #1 Khamzat Chimaev fan right here, ladies and gents. The dude is literally trash talking anybody he wants. He will smash anybody and then goes out and fucking smashes the guy. Like, that is what I want to see in a fighter. That Conor McGregor-esque style. I talked about it a little bit in the beginning of the week, and now I'm going full 110% in on it. I want to say that it's Alex Pereira as the main talk of the town right now with Khamzat. The Dubai vlogs that Khamzat Chimaev has uploaded recently in the past week or two. He's driving his fucking Ferrari like a damn savage with the top down, and he's got I don't know who. He's got a cameraman in the car. He's got his coach right next to him. So I don't know how they're fitting all these people in a 2-seater car. His coach was in his passenger seat, and they were kind of just talking back and forth. I believe the cameraman would ask them a question or two, and they would both kind of go back and forth on their answers and both give their thoughts on it, which I thought was pretty interesting. Not only did you see Khamzat's view, but you kind of saw the game plan of where he might be getting that thinking from his coach. A thing that his coach talked about is fighting at middleweight and continuing to fight at middleweight. He did not mention fighting at welterweight whatsoever. And a thing that Khamzat Chimaev talked about is that his recent fights have been on 2 to 3 weeks notice. So maybe 3 to 4 weeks, he said. Either way, to do a weight cut and to do a training camp and to get to your target goal weight is very hard to do in that time period of 3 to 4 weeks. Now, compared to a regular fight camp, which is 3 months, you have a lot more time to get ready and get ready for that weight. So if he's going to continue to take fights on 3 to 4 weeks notice, it might be better for him to actually fight at middleweight so he doesn't have to cut even more weight come fight week. So I think that #1 is why they kind of are fighting at middleweight. Khamzat Chimaev is currently ranked #3 in the middleweight, or in the welterweight division, I'm sorry. In the middleweight division, Jared Cannonier is ranked #3. So I think that itself would be an interesting fight. But at the same time, Khamzat Chimaev has had plenty of interesting fights already. He has proved himself time and time again. Just look at the dude's rap sheet. It goes on and on and on of just absolute smashes. Now, his last fight against Kevin Holland, it was 110% entertaining. You can't tell me it wasn't entertaining. But honestly, I think he needed a lot more of a challenge than someone like Kevin Holland. And I definitely think Nate Diaz would have given him that challenge. I would have probably seen that fight just to see if Khamzat is really at that level of striking, if he's really at that level of just being a fucking savage, which I 110% think he is. I would have just rather seen a longer fight with him. The more Khamzat Chimaev I see, the better, in my opinion. But at the same time, if you don't see him as much for that little amount of time, like if you only see him for 12 seconds in a fight, that could be really good or really bad. Luckily against Kevin Holland, it was really good, but you never know what could happen in a fight. And I would really like to see Khamzat Chimaev definitely more in fights. I really think it's annoying that it's hard for him to get people to accept these fights against him. I don't think a lot of other people have as much of a problem as he does. Some people have problems with finding fights, but this guy literally is having to fight 3 weeks, 4 weeks out. That's when he's figuring out who his opponent is. The thing about this training camp that he's in right now is that he's actually going to be training and in a training camp for 3 months leading up to his fight. It was also said in the podcast, if you guys didn't tune into the podcast, that Khamzat Chimaev is going to be fighting in March. That came straight from the horse's mouth. That came straight from Khamzat Chimaev. Now, there's 2 fight nights in Las Vegas. One of them is a regular UFC fight night, and the other one is the whole entire main card or pay-per-view. I believe it's UFC 285. I would love to see Khamzat Chimaev kind of fight on that card in general, on the pay-per-view card. I had him in the co-main event, kind of maybe fighting a middleweight and up-and-coming middleweight. Or someone like Jared Cannonier, basically, that's already very ranked. I do think that experience for him would be really good. I do think Jared Cannonier is definitely scary for anybody, just because there's always that possibility with Jared Cannonier that he can knock you out in the last round with 10 seconds left, just like Leon Edwards did and just did like Alex Pereira did. I do think that possibility is always there with Jared Cannonier, which is why he's a little bit more scary. But at the same time, Alex Pereira honestly does have that same knockout power. You saw it against Israel Adesanya, and the fact that he did it there shows that he can do it again. And not only that he's done it to Israel Adesanya there, but he's done it to Israel Adesanya multiple times, twice in his fucking career. So he's probably done it to other people other than Israel Adesanya. Now, the whole Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira rematch that is supposed to happen, that everybody kind of thought was going to happen right after Alex Pereira won the fight in November. But Israel Adesanya actually came out and talked about some surgery that was going to happen. And everybody, if they get knocked out like that, after you saw Israel Adesanya get knocked out like that, after you saw Stephen Thompson actually get knocked out recently, people actually get on a 6-month medical suspension. So if Israel Adesanya had to get a 6-month medical suspension, that puts him out to May. All the way out to May of just being able to fight. Now, that might mean that he still has to get into a training camp in May, or he has to start a training camp basically in February to fight in May. If he also had to get surgery and wants to deal with that medical suspension as well, I would say maybe you give him until August. Maybe you give him until midsummer, like end of June, mid-July, during that international fight week I talked about with Conor McGregor possibly returning. Now, how big of a fight week would that be? Conor McGregor fighting, Israel Adesanya fighting, or maybe you just have him kind of back-to-back within a month. You know, June is Israel Adesanya, July is Conor McGregor. Something along the lines of that would absolutely be legendary for 2023. But the most legendary thing in 2023, the fight that everybody needs to see, is Khamzat Chimaev versus Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira hasn't now fought in almost 2 months. I don't want to say that Alex Pereira is necessarily, ducking anybody or saying that he's not going to fight Khamzat. But one thing he did say that I really didn't understand why he would want to do this is that he said he wanted to fight Khamzat at 205 pounds. Obviously, he's the middleweight champ, which is at 185. It makes no sense to go up to 205 and fight somebody. Not only does it just make the belt kind of prolong of just doing nothing almost, and you don't get to see a title match. Everybody wants to see a title fight. Everybody. Especially when it comes to a headline fight and when it comes to the main event of a card. It's better if a title is on the line. It just makes things a little bit more interesting. So the fact that he wants to go up to 205, to me, shows that he struggled a lot with that weight cut down to 185 when he had to fight Israel Adesanya. And a lot of people talked about how big Alex Pereira looks. Everybody talks about how he looks bigger than the guys he's sparring against, which fight at light heavyweight, if not heavyweight. I really do think that Alex Pereira is more of a natural light heavyweight than he is a heavyweight. And one of the only reasons he cut down that weight was to fight Israel Adesanya. He talked about the only reason he came back was to fight Israel Adesanya in the UFC, and that's all he wanted to do. So, are we going to see Alex Pereira again in the UFC is my main question. Because if we are, he definitely has a fight against Khamzat Chimaev, which I want to fucking see. That fight, if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. Not just because I'm a fan of Khamzat Chimaev, But at the same time, I want to see Alex Pereira do well at the same time. It's not just that I want to see Khamzat do well. Alex Pereira is an absolute fucking dog for being able to survive those 4 brutal rounds against Israel Adesanya and come back in the 5th round. It's a super, super impressive thing of what Alex Pereira did, especially against a fighter who's as good as Israel Adesanya. It is not an easy task to beat him. We've only seen one other person do it in the UFC, which is Jan Blachowicz, and Alex Pereira didn't really use that game plan, which I thought was very interesting. So I think that Alex Pereira's game plan when it comes to Khamzat Chimaev, if that fight does happen, he's definitely going to have to focus on his grappling. Not only is Khamzat Chimaev a really good grappler, he's somewhat of a good striker too, so I think he'd be able to manage the distance well enough with Alex Pereira and as well as put some damage on him. You know, he's going to get Alex Pereira's respect while standing and striking with him. So I think that plus Khamzat Chimaev's grappling experience, it's just over for Alex Pereira immediately almost. I do think it's going to be a good fight, but I do favor Khamzat Chimaev strictly because of that grappling experience. When we saw Alex Pereira against Israel Adesanya, it definitely wasn't fucking there. The last thing I really want to talk about is how Khamzat Chimaev has been fighting recently and more or less how frequently he's been fighting. And the last time we saw him was back in September when he faced Kevin Holland. And it's been 4 or 5 months since we've seen that. So with that, I think we're going to see a big advancement in Khamzat Chimaev's striking and his grappling. And we're just going to see him overall as a more well-rounded fighter, which is something that you see with fighters as they progress to the belt. They get better and better in certain fights. Now, I don't think Khamzat Chimaev has a whole bunch to learn from his last fight against Kevin Holland, which lasted a whole 15 fucking seconds. But I do think that there are things for him to learn when it comes to striking, when it comes to really mixing the whole entire striking into his grappling, and as well as maybe focusing on some different aspects of his grappling that he can work on. Now, there's probably not as much grappling as there is striking to work on for him, but I do think he can come back in March and be a well more rounded fighter compared to what we saw in September or what he was looking like leading up to September. Not saying that he needs to work on his striking because he's going to get knocked out against whoever he fights in March, but I just think that he has enough time to really, really become a fighter that we haven't seen before. He has a chance to become a Khamzat Chimaev that's even better than the last time, which is really hard to do since he's been so good. But I think that with that time off, he does have that time to actually advance as a fighter and focus on things that other people may be focusing on, or things that he needs to himself focus on that he notices that are weaknesses in his game. Either way, no matter who he fights in March, I'm going to be tuning the fuck in and covering it from top to fucking bottom. So if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. There's going to be new videos coming out on the channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We are going to actually be having a live video session or live coverage of a grappling event that the UFC is having on Friday, December 30th. So tune into the channel for that. There's going to be more information on Friday's video when that is released on the live. So if you guys want to tune into that, hit that subscribe button. You guys will get noticed when we are going live. As well as, don't forget to comment. Let me know your guys' opinion on Khamzat Chimaev versus Alex Pereira. Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's going to be somebody else? Do you think Khamzat is fighting in March? Let me fucking know. If you guys also enjoyed the video, hit that like button. I really appreciate it. And with that, have a great fucking day.